The live, live, we're live. I'm live.
Mostly.
Frank is live. I see already marking around. What is up? I like the orange. We're both in orange.
Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of found. I didn't even remember I had this shirt. I was going through stuff for selling the day. I just kind of came across it, and I was like, "Oh, that's a cool shirt." It's pulled out, and I don't remember when I got it or anything. I just it was like buried down in a bunch of boxes. X. Yeah, it really is. It is very Gen X.
Frank, you said you owe me 3 likes from the other day, despite Joe Cool. Right. Well, not everyone thinks Joe is so cool, I guess. That was Snoopy growing up, I remember, with he had the glasses and he was Joe Cool. And they had like t-shirts of him and
oh hell yeah, I remember Joe Cool.
Woodstock, what was that little bird? His little bird friend that never did he even ever say anything? I never understood the point of he was like a character without having to say or do or be anything.
Well, Snoopy and him could understand each other. I mean, Snoopy never really talked.
Even
talk
make
either.
Sound? Did he have a voice actor?
No, even whenever he was like in a comic panel, he would just be like going like it would just be like little like chirpy little like things there.
They would have him chirp.
No, but it would just be like his he wouldn't have dialogue.
His face wasn't even fully. He was like a little tuft of hair, yellow little blob of hair, and then he had like a barely sketched in squiggly face. So even his face wasn't even as fully.
Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't remember.
Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe that's how little of an impression he made on me. Let's see. No, he's pretty plain. He's like a little swatch of yellow with a few little lines, like a little dot for an eye and an outline.
I can't because I kind of
that's it. And so as a kid, he looked unfinished. Like I never understood. He just seemed so out of place with the rest of the Peanut. I never understood what he was in there for. Like why they could have.
He was Snoopy's friend.
He didn't add anything to the show at all.
It was Snoopy's friend that he would help Snoopy do things, and Snoopy was always really mean to him, which I always thought was weird.
Everybody in Peanuts was mean to each other. It seems like. What did Snoopy do? He laid around on a doghouse all day.
Well, he
did the Red Bear. He did the flying.
Yeah, he did that. I just recently with my daughter, it wasn't really quite Thanksgiving yet, but around like a little bit before Thanksgiving, watched the Peanuts Thanksgiving special thing, and I hadn't seen that since I was a kid. And in that like Snoopy like wakes up Woodstock and makes him go and forces him to go out and gather supplies for like their Thanksgiving feast. Whereas Charlie Brown does the same. Basically, Charlie Brown goes over and he wakes up Snoopy and is like, Snoopy, you lazy dog, you have to come and help me make Thanksgiving dinner or something.
I think Peanuts got it accurate in some ways, because I do notice that people like Charlie Brown and I guess Woodstock that are like vulnerable, or they give off this air of vulnerability, do get scapegoated and targeted and used and things like that. But Lucy does her little sadistic pranks on Charlie, and like what you just described. So I think he did capture that part of human
Charles Schultz
dynamics pretty accurately, and I've always felt like I was in that role a lot myself.
Charles Schultz was a pretty, I don't even know if say low. I don't even know if say low key, but he was kind of a genius. I mean, he had a way of putting pathos into something like a comic strip that very few people did before Bill Watterson came along and did this kind of same thing.
I think we all have a little Lucy in us.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Watterson got to make Calvin and Hobbes. He listed that Peanuts was the biggest inspiration he had for Calvin and Hobbes, and I mean, no, I mean,
When I was growing up, it was always the girls that were mean. Like when we were playing together, they were the ones that would think of the mean games. Like, let's go tease this person, or let's go play in the mud or something like that. Or hey, let's go make our younger brother grab some dog doo-doo on a stick and chase us around with it, and we'll call him the doo-doo baby. Like that type of stuff. The girls were always the one thinking of that. I was playing with the toy like it was designed, the dinosaurs or the Legos or whatever, and my mind did not go to those places. But every time my sister or one of her friends or some girl in the neighborhood would come on the scene, that's when all of like that would take it to that next level. So to me, it was always the girls being mean and pranking people and sadistic. Girls were not. What's the poem? Sugar and Spice and Puppy Dog Tales and stuff. The girls in my area growing up were not that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something about Peanuts that's like really is true to life. Whenever you really look at it, like, it's like all the characters are actually fairly complicated. I mean, even Linus, who's probably like the most like good
Is he the one with the
natured.
blanket?
Yeah, he's one of the most good natured. You know, he's the one that
And then
gives
they
the
have
speech in the
Schroeder
Christmas.
with the piano, the Beethoven.
Yeah, yeah. Schroeder never really speaks. He just plays the piano.
Dun, 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 dun. I hope I don't get Can you get copyrighted for Beethoven? Dun, 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 dun.
No,
I'm singing it out of key.
not for
That'll
humming it.
hopefully get me out of it. Yeah, see, Leah, what I'm saying, and the girls were always fucking with me too. I had some babysitters that fucked with me. Some of the girls at school were always teasing me or pranking me. Like, and I was very gullible, so I was always the target for a prank. If somebody was going to try to prank somebody, it was going to be Jeff. And so the kids were constantly pulling stuff on me, and it seems like it was mostly driven by the girls, because I would play with the boys. We were like a little playground group, so we all knew each other. We were all cool with each other, and they never started stuff with me. The girls were the ones that were always like picking and teasing. They would start that germs game, like so and so has the germs, pass it on, and then you'd have to not, if you touch them, you got their germs. You'd have to like not touch them all day. All girl driven. We would do this thing. We'd make sneezing powder, and we'd take it to school. It was washing powder, crushed up aspirin, baking soda, and something else. And you put it in a little jar, and you take it to school, and you'd snort it, and it would make you sneeze like 20 times in a row. And we'd have sneezing contests to see who could sneeze the longest. The girls, all of that. Jeff would never have come up with sneezing powder or like thought of it or known how to make it or anything. That was all of it.
That sounds horrible and torturous.
So, I had a tweet. I think it might be related to this actually. Let me look. No, I guess it's not the tweet I thought it was. I thought I had one about feminism and women or girls. Actually, I do. Hang on, let me think. Let me find it. Yeah, I wanted to see what y'all thought about this tweet. And I still don't have, maybe I'll save it for Lib. I still don't have a strong opinion on it, but I'll at least introduce it and put it out there. I don't know if I completely agree. Frank, you wanted sad, tragic stories. Oh, here's Steve. He can give his opinion too.
What's up?
Feminism is a nation killer because the whole point is to extract labor from the woman that should be going into raising children and redirect. Well, I won't read. An actually functional nation would exclude women from the full-time workforce, and you'd see a reduction in house prices, rents, high taxes, wasteful government, blah, blah, blah. There was more to it than this, but it was the idea that women are actually, like, society actually benefits from women not being in the workforce. Women benefit from it, and it made all these points. I don't know if I agree with all of it.
I don't agree with any of it.
But I do know that in my personal experiences of workforces, the more women in them or women influenced or whatever, the less they seem to work out for me. I do way better in male environments, male work environments.
I can work in both. It's not a problem for me.
Yeah, you have skills though. You have a lot of skills. Diplomacy, tact, sensitivity,
Most of the time.
empathy, interest.
I don't know. Any tweet like that, I just kind of dismiss on the face of it, because it's like there's when half of your population is relegated to basically a second-class citizen is what they're doing. They
But
might
what
not
does
be
that
intent
mean?
on doing that.
What does that mean though? They weren't like that in my lifetime.
To you,
Well, I mean legally, like we didn't grow up in a system where women could do anything men could do growing up. Like we all played together, they worked together, they did the same jobs, like everything.
Yeah,
Like me
no.
as a child, when I looked at the world, it didn't seem like women were doing anything the men weren't doing.
Well, for a long time, there weren't women in certain positions in
I know, but we didn't
companies.
grow up in those times. So
We did.
what does it mean today when you say that?
You-
Like women
Even when
are
I was
kept-
growing up, you know, there was this kind of socio-cultural kind of expectation that women were better secretaries, they were better assistants, they were better suited for low-stress jobs. Like
So
my
let
mom
me ask
even
you
went through
this.
this too.
Is a socio-cultural expectation somebody keeping you down or like forcing you into a role? Is when people say like we were kept down or there's this system keeping people, is it the socio-cultural expectation that's the system?
Yeah, it's a socio-cultural expectation that that's the systems. You know, for a long time, you know, how would you put this? A lot of women were expected to stay at home and tend to the children, right? And then they started to branch out and make more money, and there was an influx of women entering the workforce in multiple positions, but generally they weren't given, I hate saying it this way, but power of like authority or positions of authority.
I don't want them to have that.
I want them to have everything that I want. If they wanted to go for
Well,
something, I shouldn't restrict their
let
movement.
me say it like this. I didn't have them. I did not have a problem with them having it until I had to experience work under it, and now I'm completely against. Like I'm not saying you have to pass a law, but I personally will not work for a woman.
Yeah, well, I think that's your choice, and you
because
have a
they
right
don't seem to have the
to do
skill set
that.
to manage me. That's why.
And that might be possible. You might be an exceptional case where they just don't have the tools required to do that. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to do it. I've had
Yeah,
two
no, I'm
two
not
female
saying that.
bosses.
Like I think a
Yeah.
business should do whatever works for that business or that workplace.
Well, I think it should work for the
that
majority of the
business
people.
to have mostly women, mostly men,
Yeah.
women in charge, whatever. I'm not trying to tell any business.
Yeah, the last
how to run their
last
thing.
female boss that I had was a woman who would be racialized as black, and she was fucking awesome. Like she made sure that you know we had what are called skip level meetings, where you go above your
skiff level.
Skip level.
Skip
So
level.
yeah, let's say you're just a little lowly worker. Well, you skip over the manager and speak directly to her.
Oh.
Right. And she's asking, how's everything going? Can the managers do anything better for you? Are there any improvements that we can make? So she's right there. She's in the mud with us, even though we didn't see her an awful lot. It felt like she was there and she was present, and that we had someone that we could go to if our managers were being dicks and stonewalling us or stonewalling our wages, right? So we could go straight to her. And that was an amazing move that she made in that. It was really, really awesome. And she was always very attentive. She always listened. She didn't make accusations. She just wanted to listen, and it was really amazing. I loved working for her, even though I didn't know her very well. Like that to me is a phenomenal manager right there.
Let me amend what I said. I've had some fantastic female bosses, some of the best bosses I've ever had, especially in my earlier like work career. what I said about women in Boston, that applies to the Pacific Northwest where I am now. I don't necessarily know that I would like that would apply in other places. I would give women a chance in other places.
Let's change.
So I have had
parameters a
women
little bit
bosses. They are out there.
Yeah.
They were excellent, and so I revised what I said.
Yeah, there's some industries. I've had women that were slightly over me in like work authority, and they really had to, because this is when I was a mechanic. They really had to change their perception of what and how the business functioned and how the mechanics functioned. And she realized really early on, like, I'm in a male space. Like, this is a fucking male space. I can't change this to a female space. Otherwise, the shit does not fucking work. Right. So I think it depends on the workforce that you're working with, the type of business that you're working with, the kind of person that they are. I think there's a lot of nuance to that conversation. But if you had someone that came into my shop trying to change shit, it probably would not have worked out well for her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of like that whole saying, know your company, or what is it? Know your audience. Like, know your audience. It's really, really critically important. Your joke could be like awesome as hell, and it could bomb because you didn't recognize who your audience was. And that's why I think some of these comedians are so fucking good. Like Dave Chappelle is so fucking good because he doesn't need to know his audience. His jokes are just fucking killing it every fucking time. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna keep going. You get my point. I just don't see why this person who made this tweet seems to think that the world would work better without women in the workspace. Why didn't he change it? Why didn't he say, why don't we remove all men from the workspace and have the women do it? That would be equality. Right? Let's see some women mechanics, women construction workers,
Do women want to do that? I'm sure there are. I'm sure the women.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the point, though.
Currently doing it.
I think that's. I mean, that's what I think. What Steve's saying is that makes his point better. That like if the person trying to make the point they're making said that instead,
and he
that
did
makes
say
his
that
point
there
better.
are a minority of women whose brains have features similar to men that are successful in these specific. I think there was another part of the tweet that I didn't find to share, because that one little tweet I shared was not all of what I wanted to share.
So Pew Research polled men, and I think it was like 43.2% of men would be more than happy to stay home, watch the kids, tend to the house if they knew that all the bills were going to get paid. That's like nearly fucking half of all men. 40.
I would be
2% of men. I would.
Yeah, I totally would. Yeah, in a heartbeat. I love taking care of my kids. I typically have been the one that does the house cleaning, that does the cooking and everything anyway. I have no problem being a house husband. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't feel emasculated by it. I don't feel. I don't either. I just don't.
Do you feel emasculated by anything? Like, is that something that is an issue with you?
Not really. I mean, I have like weird male ego things. Like I think every guy does. There's certain things that like hurt my ego in a way that I don't even expect. I don't see coming.
Specifically male.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one right now. It's not something I would dwell on a lot, So I don't dwell on a lot. But like there's certain just like usually it's like little comments or something like my wife can just make like some like little comment and she doesn't mean anything by it, and it's not meant, and it's not there's no kind of like, I think it's just like some kind of like offhand comment will just like hurt my little male pride, It's like, it makes me feel really small. Makes me feel really small for a second, Do
you associate it with your maleness? Like, do you think, oh, as a man, I should have done better? Or is it
does, yeah. It actually, it literally affects like this like concept of which I don't normally. This is not something which is like something I hate so much. Like the male ego is something that I just fucking hate.
Do women have egos?
I'm sure they do. Yeah. There's a female ego too, but like I mean, there's a feminine ego, right? I should say masculine. My masculine ego.
But I want to hear what you were gonna say. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I just say like I think I don't know if you call it the masculine ego or whatever you call it, but there's like this thing that I think I don't at least I don't see
Like
women
most
talking
people I
about it.
know have egos. I don't know if they're. I don't
Yeah.
know what's different about a
Well, there was
female
a
versus
poll or a
Right.
study done a long time ago. I can't remember, not a long time ago, but fairly recently, like within the last 10 years. And the opinion was men would rather be respected than loved. Women would rather be loved and protected.
As
Right.
a woman, let
Here
me
we
just
go.
say, I'm kidding.
Welcome, Leah.
No, hey, well, welcome, Leah. We really really
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on. No, yeah, it's just like I was trying to think of like a really specific example, but like I said, it's not something I dwell on a lot. But every time it happens, I kick myself because I'm just I'm just like that was like I've sometimes I've occasionally like reacted kind of like kind of snapped at somebody because and I realized afterwards it was because like it hurt it hurt my man pride kind of way, kind of thing. And I think it's specifically about like my ability to provide or my ability to it's those things that are associated with the masculine ego type
Yeah, that's where my
masculine society
insecurity.
type things are. And I'm not conscious of it. I don't think about myself in that way all the time. When it happens, I always feel it always makes me feel really stupid too. It's like this lizard brain response. It's a very primal type thing that I can't no amount of evolution seems to be able to overcome it entirely for me. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
Steve, but I don't know.
No, I think it's a valid point, but I also want to like direct my next statement at Leah because she had a really great quote or a really great comment that said what was it? Technically, removing men and replacing them with women is equity, not
Equity,
equality.
Yeah, that's good.
And I would partially agree with that, but more so than disagree. I think it's historical parody, but
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm of the opinion that I believe in equal opportunity, but I'm not necessarily going to like, I'm not the type of person to like want to push a certain agenda one way or the other, whether it's like, feminist rhetoric or like, traditional values or anything like that, because there are always going to be circumstances when a person is going to need to take an opportunity, and a woman might be in a situation where she needs to work to provide for herself. Families can't provide for her. She doesn't have a husband to depend on, So I really think that living in a society where there's equal opportunity for men and women to be in the workforce is probably ideal. But at the same time, though, I'm not going to go like the radical feminist route. This is one of the reasons why I'm probably past your bare basic like first wave feminism. I'm not really with the feminist movement because I don't like this push to shame women who want to choose to opt out of the workforce or who are in a position they can opt out of the workforce. I don't like the shame and guilt that is attached to forcing women into the workforce or like shaming them out of a more traditional role. Like, I think there's just like equal opportunity based on merit is probably just like the best system.
Yeah, I always thought that's what we had until I got older.
Yeah, I mean it's true that I think the whole idea of equity in that sense is so silly. When you look at like there are some industries that like there are people that simply cannot do these certain jobs. If you're under 5 foot tall, you're not going to be in the NBA. Almost certainly, it's just not like a thing, and and that's not fair and is it fair? Like, even if that person's really, really good at fundamentals of basketball and everything else like that, like the fact their height, I mean, there have been a few shorter basketball players, but I mean, like they're like, but it's for the most part, you know what I mean? It's just like it's one of or if you're a really small surrounding guy and you can't get bulked up, you're probably not going to do very well at football either.
Can someone think of a
sport.
game that everyone can play, like a game that has
chess,
a role for short people?
Chess, cornhole.
Cornhole.
The thing though,
I know there's a different game.
is selection bias.
I knew you were going to say that.
There's a thing called selection bias. I'm sure everybody's aware of, and so the NBA self-selects for people that are taller, right? But there's no reason why businesses should hold that same kind of selection bias when we're talking about intelligence.
Well, I know,
we're
but
talking about
when people talk about equity,
not?
they
I
talk
would
about it
want
as they
intelligent
talk about
people
it
if
in
I
like
had a
every
business.
sense. They never
Yeah.
talk about it. They never talk about it in just like equity whenever it in certain circumstances. They talk about it as this blanket term that covers everything. You know, that's what I was referring to.
Let me,
Yeah,
let me
I
throw
personally
out
love living in an egalitarian society. Sorry,
I do
Leah,
too.
go ahead.
another way of looking at it. So long as we have a free market in a capitalist society, and we don't have a society that is going to automatically select for certain roles, and we are free to pursue whatever career path we want to choose or opt out of having a career, we're really not going to have that kind of equity in the workforce that most people are looking for, because a lot of times you're going to have women who are just going to choose a specific field that maybe there are already a lot of women in that field because they just naturally excel at that. Like pushing for, like, say, for example, getting like more women in STEM and like wanting to raise like the numbers of
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
What's that? That seems politically ideologically driven.
It is because the fact of the matter is that men are more interested in things and women are more interested in people, and you can see that from birth. I have seen it in. Okay, I only have a boy. I don't have a boy. I don't have a baby boy, but I do have I have a nephew, and ever since he was a little baby, he was much more interested in like playing with a toy or anything than he was with with people, whereas my daughters, on the other hand, they both they would, I mean, they play with their toys, don't get me wrong, but like they're way more interested, and they'll come up to you and they want to touch your face, they want you to talk to them, they want you to they want you to interact with people. It's something that's I mean, I'm not saying there can't be a boy that's born that's more interested in people, and there can't be a woman but on the whole it does work like that, you know. I mean, so we're talking about like a percentage wise, it's just not.
We kind of base statistical data on averages. So if you're looking at the data, you're going to see, on average, you're going to see more women with like a higher level of like social skills, and men with like practical technical skills. Like that's just what we're seeing. That's just like, you know, that's I think that's been all across the board for like most of civilization. That's not really a new concept. It's just that is how society has evolved the way that it has because of those averages. We see like historically a lot more men have been interested in like the technical side of things and the building and construction, and women have just like even with an opportunity now, that's why we get into these discussions, is because we see now that even with women having like here in the US having as much opportunity as we have, we are still choosing to opt out of those fields.
Yeah, choosing to be mothers or choosing to to be teachers or whatever the situation might be.
I've got 2 sons and a daughter, and both of my sons are far more interested in things, and my daughter is going for her master's in psychology, so it's like she wants to deal with people. Like, it is such a poignant aspect of like all of this. And then you've got me, who I worked as a mechanic. I literally worked as a mechanic for 30 fucking years. I loved things. I loved playing with things. And now I still do the same thing, even though I'm in the aerospace industry. I'm still playing with things. And my wife, she's very much an introvert. She likes being by herself. So whatever she can do by herself, she is way more happier. And then they moved her into a position where she's got to deal with people, and she's fucking miserable.
No, yeah. I mean, there's always. I mean,
what kind of work does she do?
I'm not going to discuss her kind of work, but she works in aerospace as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely. I mean, I myself, I mean, for a man, I'm a lot more interested in people than I think a lot of other guys are. I'm a lot more interested. I have a lot more interested in being caring, nurturing, that kind of thing than a lot of guys probably are. But you know, and my wife is probably a little more interested in things than the average woman, to be honest. Like she went to school she was as a theater technician. Like she went to school for lighting and sound technology in theater. that's
another
what she,
thing that I think people bring into the discussion, but we just brought into it, is I think that is another very important lens to kind of view a lot of the discussion from, is a lot of the stuff can be based on whether or not you're introverted or extroverted, whether male or female. That's going to be the deciding factor at the end of the day as to what passion you're going to follow.
And that's I'm an ambivert.
You don't
so
really look at that.
I can do both.
Yeah,
I'm an ambivert too, but I have a hard time getting along with introverts.
So.
Yeah, my wife is a hardcore fucking introvert. She would just rather not be around people.
Oh, I can't.
I'm good with people, but in person, I am very different. That's not really that surprising to me.
You're an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm very good at being extroverted when I have the mental battery to do so, but most of prefer to be by myself doing a lot.
Yeah, you're an ambivert then, pretty much the same thing. And because a lot of times I can be very introverted, but for the most, but if I'm out in a social situation, like I'll end up talking to people. I'll end up talking to strangers and stuff like that. But then on the whole, I was always kind of that when I was growing up. I was always kind of kid. I stayed in my room a lot. I was a writer. I did stuff like that. But then when the social situations came up and everything, I could go out there and I'd go out and play in bands and be on stage and be all crazy on stage and jump around, do all this band type stuff that you do when you're in a band. Yeah, it was sometimes I'd get clothes from the Goodwill or something maybe, but I didn't. It was costumes. It wasn't
not like GWAR or anything.
No, nothing like that.
I attribute a lot of my extroverted qualities to just getting good at being able to mirror social cues, mirroring extroverted behavior that I see in others, and just kind of emulating that kind of.
Consciously
put me in a position to better socialize.
Yeah, one of the best ways to connect with someone is to mirror their body language.
So
long as it's not. Yeah, so if you think about it, when two dudes are about to fight, they both mirror the other person. They've got their fist clenched, everything. Or if you've got two guys in a social environment and they're just talking, 9 times out of 10, they will eventually mirror each other's body language. Women do the same fucking thing. There's a whole kind of art and almost science to body language.
Yeah, it helps to get the other person to let down their guard. In a conversation, when you see somebody is smiling, just smiling back at them and kind of mirroring their disposition, so that they feel okay, my disposition is the same as yours, so it's acceptable, and it makes the person more comfortable.
Yeah.
Is it conscious, or does it just happen? Did they just start to align? They're not consciously just put his
a lot of times it's unconscious. They don't even know they're doing it.
Wow.
For me, it's kind of I started kind of having to be conscious about it. I think probably the way that I socialize, I have more in common with someone that's ADHD brain. So I just kind of blurt out uncontrollably some things sometimes, but
blurt out words.
Yeah, after a while, as I got older, I started consciously trying to be aware of another person's disposition. There were a whole bunch of factors, just a bunch of different life experiences that led to that, and different things that kind of forced me to navigate social situations in a certain way. That's just a unique experience I had.
I'm a student of body language. I read a couple of books on body language. The best one I would have to recommend is What Every Body Is Saying by Joe Navarro. But here's a question for you guys. Let's see if anybody knows it. What's the one part of the human body that cannot lie?
Lie? Cannot lie?
Lie?
The voice?
No. This is going to be so weird for you guys, especially when it hits.
I think I read about this. I can't remember.
Your hands? I don't know.
No.
I would think your tongue, maybe.
It's your feet.
What?
Oh.
What is it?
I don't want anybody looking at my
feet.
Yeah, we never lie.
Our feet. We learn to. Okay, so
I don't
I
believe
should
it.
say we learn to mask our intentions with our eyes, with our face, with our hands, with our arms, but we never learn to do that with our feet. So if you ever want to know how someone is feeling, look at their feet. If their feet are
What are you
pointed
looking
towards
at? They
you,
just look like feet.
no. I'm not even kidding you. This has worked so many fucking times. I can't even tell you. One of the most important things to look for is which direction the feet are pointing when you're in a room. So
Even
if you're
just
talking to somebody in a room and one foot
movement,
is
like
pointed towards you and one foot is pointed towards the door, what this generally means is they're very interested in what you're saying, but they have other stuff that they need to go and do.
Steve, you're
Oh,
freaking me out.
okay.
Hang on.
No,
Let me,
I,
let me
I,
think
I
about
understand
this.
what he's saying. I'm not,
Yeah,
I
it's making sense.
I'm not necessarily convinced that feet never lie. However, I do know that at least for me, I don't think I've noticed this with other people, but I notice with myself when I'm like talking to somebody and I am trying to like leave and go do something, I will like orient myself to where like I'm halfway between looking at them and the doorway.
Yeah.
Um,
kind of like sidestepping and starting to back towards the door.
yeah.
It's guaranteed. Next time you do that, watch your feet. Look at what your feet are doing.
Oh
It'll
God.
trip you the fuck out. I had a conversation with my sons. So my son went to the Boys and Girls Club locally here, and they were really having a hard time. One of the or the main person who was over, I can't the main administrator or whatever. She was having a hard time, kind of like reading the kids. And I said, "Well, here, let's go sit down and we'll have a conversation because I've got a great thing for you." And so we went and sat in this room, just the two of us. It was, it's 5:30. The place is already closed. And I'm talking to her and I noticed that her feet are doing exactly what I said they were doing. She had one foot pointed towards me and one foot pointed towards the door. And I said, for example, if you were to learn body language, for example, I would say that you're very interested in what we're talking about, but your other foot is pointed towards the door, which I'm sure means you want to go home and you want to go to your family. And she just kind of sat back in her chair, crossed her arms, is like, holy shit, dude.
You don't lie.
Yeah, she was like, "You're absolutely right," and I'm like, "Cool. We can reconvene this meeting at another time, and I'll let you get going." Right?
There's
And it's amazing how
every time you're talking about body language, I can't help but think about the Observe allegations. The YouTube channel Observe, who does the body language analysis.
yeah. And it's important for everybody to know that body language is not about you. You can never tell if someone is lying from body language. It's not possible. What
Except
you can
their
do is you can tell whether or not someone is uncomfortable or comfortable.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not an exact science either. It's something that it's based. It's also based on averages too.
Yep.
So if you can say the average
behavior.
Average behavior of a person who's uncomfortable may or may not look like this, then you can kind of get a rough idea of where they're at. But it's the exact science, and it's not really something that in the scientific world that a lot of people really lend credence to, even if it is an interesting study of human development in of itself, and also kind of tacked on to as adjacent to psychology. Some people might find it interesting, but a lot of people kind of look at it as pseudoscience.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of like cold reading.
Yeah,
it's a little like cold reading.
There are a lot of universal body language behaviors that literally every culture on Earth practices. We have a tendency to touch our children's heads, smell their hair, all this other stuff. We kiss them a lot, right? There's certain body languages that are just universal. Crossing the arms is one. Crossing the arms isn't bad. It's not being closed off. Maybe they're giving themselves a self-hug. Yeah, maybe they're giving themselves a self-hug. Maybe they're cold. You don't know, which is why you want to look for clusters of behavior. But to do that, you need to gather a baseline of what that specific person does. Yes. Because there's you also have family cultures of body language too. So some body language is endemic to that family. And so you have to learn the person. There's general body languages that we do as human beings, and you can kind of predict. But the more baseline that you gather from that person, the more accurate your interpretation of their body language will be.
I tell people all the time, don't go off my body language. They never get it right.
My favorite I guess thing that people will do is a Irish or autistic goodbye. If you're familiar with that,
They'll just leave.
yeah, you just leave. Just leave. That's it. Just, no words. Just up, out the door. I do that all the time. I love it. It's. I like people.
Yeah, I, don't
people
have,
will be,
I mean,
people,
I'll say bye because I won't. Like,
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. No. You do say
I-
bye, but like you just. There's
You
no
mean,
like.
Yeah,
There's
they
no
used
like
to call
build
it-
up
they
to
used
it.
my
They used to
mom
call it-
never.
they used to call it an Irish goodbye.
So I grew up
Yeah,
with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
She
Yeah.
just hangs up.
Yeah, no, it's so
I'll
it's
meet
so
you at the
great. I love
restaurant.
it.
Okay, click.
Click.
And
Yeah,
so I'm used
so-
to not people
Yeah.
not saying goodbye doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. Oh
So
no, it doesn't bother me. I love it.
tendency- Yeah, females have a tendency. So when we're talking about universal body language, females have a tendency when they get nervous to cover their throat, or what's called the suprasternal notch. It's that little dip, that little valley at the base of the neck,
Right
at
here.
the two collarbones where they meet.
Mhm.
Right, they'll
Okay.
have a habit of touching that. It's kind of like the whole clutching your pearls kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right? They'll go and they'll touch that. Where men will have a habit of crossing their arms or taking a step back, putting their hands on their shoulder or on their hips, because there's two different responses there. Women are used to having to defend themselves, and men are used to having to fight.
Yeah.
So we tend to take a more aggressive stance when women take a more subdued stance, and they protect their vital organs more frequently.
Don't.
So if you ever see a woman touching her suprasternal notch, you know she's
That means
probably
she's
nervous.
threatened.
She's
because-
uncomfortable. She's uncomfortable.
Why do I need to know people's like? I don't read
from
body
my-
language. So I don't know if people are comfortable or not, and that might be part of the problem. But why do I need to care if the people around? People are always uncomfortable around me. I just
Yeah.
assume that. But why is it important to know the comfort level of the people around you? Like they can always tell me if there's an issue. I don't have to read
Right.
it.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I
people-
think verbal communication should just be.
Yeah, I rely on
good-
verbal. I don't pay attention to nonverbal at all.
Yeah.
Unless it rises to the level of verbal, I don't even pay attention to it as an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people really aren't going to, because most people are just kind of like wrapped in conversation. They're probably just like wrapped up in what they're saying, and trying to like think through like whatever it is that they're talking about, and like self-awareness is just for most people not something that like they just naturally possess. And
Yeah.
How people would not be
that's
aware
another
of
reason why
it.
the word narcissism gets overused, is because people kind of just genuinely are like, you know,
Self-absorbed.
self-involved. Like we each care
Yeah.
about what our thoughts and feelings are, so it's kind of natural for people to just be a little self-absorbed.
I mean, one of the things that they teach autistic kids, I'm sure you know about this, Jeff, is they teach them some degree of body language. Like they look at their face. They'll teach children how to look at the face and try to determine what emotion that person is feeling.
Yeah,
So
but a
they
lot
can
of us can't.
interact with the world, right?
There's a limit to.
Sure, but guess how much you would be able to take out of a conversation with someone if you were paying attention to their body language. Most experts in body language usually.
What's the point of a
put words
conversation?
around-
What's the point of words? If I
Well,
have
it's-
to
well,
supplement
it's
they
a
it with
different
say
form of
body
communication, Jeff. There's
Yeah.
like body language is just a form of communication. I would argue
Yeah.
that it's definitely not as efficient of a form of communication as like
Can it be
speaking.
ignored?
I would say
Um,
never. I don't ever ignore body language.
Like
I
since
mean,
we have verbal
most experts
communication,
in the
shift
field of
that
body
into
language,
just
they will
rely
agree
on
that about 60 to 80% of nonverbal communication, or sorry, 60 to 80% of communication is done non-verbally.
I know. We
So
learned
if
that in
you're not
speech
reading
class.
body language, you could possibly be missing,
I
three
know.
quarters of the conversation.
But
I don't know about you, but I don't like missing out
I
on three
agree
quarters of a
because my
conversation.
experience bears that out. But I don't understand the point of a conversation if there's something you have to leave out of it and put non-verbal. Like, why try to communicate at all if we can't do it verbally?
In context of the current panel, we kind of do have to look at verbal communication as being like a priority here, because 3 out of 5 people on the panel don't have their camera on, and
Right.
Jeff
Yeah.
he can't see your body language. So
So the
we-
nonverbal would be stuff like tone of voice.
Right. So, for example, here's a good example. So, Chris just a couple of minutes ago had his legs crossed. He was bouncing his feet. He had his hand up to his face,
Right.
which probably means he was invested in the conversation. He was very interested. and then he put his leg down, and now his fingers are crossed. So what can I take from that? I could take that there's a certain level of intensity that he now feels towards his conversation that he didn't have before, but he was still interested.
You have sunlight on your shoulder.
That's a complete fucking guess, because I don't watch Chris's body language that much.
It's also worth noting that, like, in my experience at least, I'm better at like reading the body language of other neurodivergent people than neurotypical people.
Very
like which is likely
probably code.
Well, it's probably just due to I spend a lot more time with autistic people, so I'm more used to.
And I think our theory of mind around that is more supple. Chris, what's going on with you? Did we get it right? Did Steve get it right?
You know, I wasn't thinking about it.
That's the point of body language.
I think Chris was bouncing his leg probably because he has ADHD.
Yeah, it's the ADHD is what I like about. And then my wife came in and asked me a question, and I answered her question. Then I came back to the conversation, and I was listening, and I was just I was trying to make sure I was following everything, because sometimes it's hard for me to follow two things at once. So I did like I was probably listening with more intensity because I was trying to make sure I was keeping up. So,
yeah, and now your fingers are crossed, which means you're re-engaged in the conversation. But Jeff, you remember one of our Monday meetings, and I was like, "Are you okay?" Because you're kind of.
You said I was rocking or something.
You were rocking, and for most people, when they rock, that means they're nervous. But you're autistic, and this is a natural habit of yours. So now I have a baseline. When you don't do that, then I'm paying attention. So when you're intently listening, you stop.
Yeah.
Like right now, you're intently listening, and you stop that back and forth movement. So that's a baseline that I can use.
Well, then people need to interest me more. If I'm
actually, from what I've seen, Jeff, when he's rocking, is usually engaged in the conversation, and usually it's when he stops rocking that he's disengaged. Usually because I've noticed, like, he stops rocking, and I can see him like typing and stuff. So like you're not.
Man, if y'all can figure out a pattern to it, y'all are gonna get.
I have no idea the pattern, but
there's actually a neurological reason that people that are on the spectrum stem.
Yeah. That's a stimming thing.
Yeah. So when he's rocking back and forth like that, it's very possible he could be typing on the keyboard. But the point is that when he stops rocking, he's engaged in something, right? And when he's rocking, that's when he really thinks a lot. That's when his verbal skills are really going through the roof, and he's having a deep intellectual conversation where he needs to get that feeling out and be vocal. It's the reason why when he's typing, he stops, is because he's being vocal. He's just being vocal with his fingers.
Yeah, like I notice, like, none of you can see this, but whenever I get like really engaged in a conversation, usually I will like get up from my chair and start pacing around my room.
Yeah.
Like.
What? Wait, say that again. Like when the conversations get intense, you get up and pace.
Yeah, especially when I like get like worked up and stuff, I will like start getting up and like pacing. It helps me like stay focused and stay like engaged in what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I lean forward. I move physically forward to the computer. That's how I notice that I engage. Like right now, I'm relaxed. I'm leaned back. But if this conversation got heated, I'd be putting my chair up. I'd be leaning much more forward. I'd be much more engaged. And my wife actually noticed that and turned me on to it originally.
Probably one of the most mind-blowing conversations I've had on this stream ever since it started. This is totally like
body language is fucking fascinating. Like there was a panel of body language or body language experts that went through the entire Johnny Depp trial. And they consistently pointed out, they were able to point out before evidence was even brought forward to challenge her narrative. They would be able to pick out she's lying. She's not telling the truth. I don't think she's telling. No, they didn't say that. They said she's really uncomfortable. I would be surprised if there wasn't evidence presented that conflicted with her.
So it's like a probability spread.
Probability. Yeah, it's about probability, not whether or not they're lying. I misspoke. So yeah.
I love Steve Coogan.
It's actually a little bit like I guess like the lie detector tests. They don't detect if you're lying. They detect if you're like nervous or
having
uncomfortable. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
testing your reactions, and then which is part of the reason why they're fucking bullshit. Like they don't. People can be nervous for all sorts
Yeah,
of
especially
reasons.
neurodivergent people.
Yeah,
Can be
Yeah.
related to anything,
and
for any
especially
reason.
when you're
Or
like, it's
trauma
like,
people.
and like the whole like thing about lie detector tests is that like it's like, all right, we need to hook you up to this machine, and then we're gonna test and see if you're telling the truth, and that
Yeah.
just that knowledge makes people uncomfortable, even if like
Yeah.
you are telling the truth. Like that's why there's so many false, quote unquote, false positives.
Yeah.
That's why
Joe,
they-
Joe Navarro.
in the beginning to establish a baseline, because that's what Steve was talking about. What a baseline is establishing what your behavior looks like when you are completely calm and normal. Like, so they ask like, what is your name? Where were you born? Like questions that are just very easy to just get like that baseline. Okay, this is what it looks like when they are completely calm and telling the absolute truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I do is like if I have to negotiate something like let's say a wage increase, or I need to, me and my wife are negotiating with or anybody. What I do is I spend like the first 5 minutes, like it's a get to know you. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What are your interests? Stuff like this. Just some stuff to just disarm them, to make them feel more at ease. And then I can start collecting, the majority of my baseline, and then I can go from there.
Yeah, it's actually
This is
also
something
just
all expert
just
language
broadly, like,
leaders do.
putting people in comfortable positions. It's one of the things like when I was a kid, we used to have a family meeting time, which sounds scary, but like
all making sense now.
But like what we would do is we would all like gather in like usually either like my parents' room or the living room, and we'd all just splay out on like couches or beds, just in a way that like
a big family splay.
Well,
That was
I mean,
your
just-
meetings, and y'all would all splay out on beds
yeah,
and talk.
yeah. You like get yourself comfortable to have serious conversations,
Like bed level comfort.
I mean, almost, yeah. Like, I mean, we just like I remember I would always steal the rocking chair.
Oh
Yeah, because I would sit in it sideways, and then just rock like side to side. It was super fun.
So the podcast I was talking about, where it's these 4 guys and they get together and they watch like trials and interviews and stuff. It's called the Behavior Panel. And I'm gonna put a link in the in the stream here.
I'll try to find it. I'll
I would recommend doing this.
Let's see.
I'm also gonna put it in the chat. In the
I don't think it'll
stream chat.
I don't
I
think
can
it'll
see it.
show up in the chat because you don't have
Showed up for me.
mod privileges, but I'll go ahead and put it.
So I put it in the private chat and in the comments.
Also, I see it in the comments, so I don't know.
Oh, how is it?
Yeah.
How
I see it in the comments too.
links, but no one else can.
I don't know.
I think it's because if you're not a moderator and you post something like that, like the moderators can see it, but if you're not a mod and you post a link, it won't show up for anybody else but the moderators. That's my understanding.
Can
So if I'm
Frank,
like,
can you see Steve's link that he posted?
I mean, I can.
Oh, you can? Okay, then
Yeah.
never mind. I don't know then. That's weird.
Because
Because
normally it
usually it blocks it. Yeah, usually it'll block any link that unless you have the wrench thing.
Well, good.
But,
I'm glad. No, I'm glad.
I'm glad. I think that's a stupid thing. I really really hate that.
I mean, I don't want just anyone posting links, but certainly Steve should have that ability.
Well, you can give him a wrench too.
Patty can't,
I could do
so
that.
that's weird.
Okay. Yeah, don't click it.
Maybe
Frank.
maybe
I
they
just want to
changed
know
it.
if you could see it.
Maybe they changed it, and you can only post links if you're in the either
In the
you're like the
stream
owner
or the
or
stream.
you're-
Try
well,
posting
yeah,
a
my-
link. Dude.
Maybe it is different if you posted StreamYard. I never
Yeah,
thought about
let me
Post
let
a
me
link to your OnlyFans.
that.
Frank would love that.
Yep. It showed up.
It showed up. Okay, yeah, I think
I'll be
it's
darned. Okay.
people on the panel can post links, which is good, fine.
Hey, Ragnar.
What's up, Ragnar?
We're talking about. I don't remember what we're talking about anymore.
We're talking about body language.
body
language.
language. Yeah,
Body language.
Because I see body, like I'm not blind. I can see changes in people's body. I just don't pay attention to any of it because I don't know what it even means. And the code is different depending on what part of the world you're in too.
Well, it could really help you with the work you do in therapy is
Like,
to be able to read your patients.
With the clients.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to have to read people. I want them to. I'm a talker. I want them to tell like whatever it is they're
like,
going on non-verbally. I want them to articulate that verbally because that's when I'm going to be able to make use.
But that's
what we all want, but it's just not. It's just not reality, though.
So something therapists will use is that like they will watch their. Oh, sorry, Leah. You're breaking up and you're very, very quiet.
Sorry. I was just going to say, like, the whole thing about it is what he's saying about, verbally expressing and opposed to reading body language. This is a struggle for a lot of people. It's being able to get to a point where they can express a lot of things verbally. And when you're put into a situation where you need to be able to express verbally, it challenges you to kind of break the ice on that and kind of get yourself used to vocalizing your thoughts and feelings. And it also helps you to gain better communication skills in the process because you're in a situation where, the other person is not going to be able to read you. You have to vocalize what you're feeling. So I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing to kind of put people in a position where, they need to verbalize what it is that they're feeling and not completely rely on the other person to just assume their feelings. Because in romantic relationships, that is like the number one problem that I will see a lot with people is like you have too many people just assuming that the other person knows what they're thinking and feeling. Women will do this a lot. They will assume that their partner just knows. And so they
mind reading.
Yeah, theory of mind.
Well, you should know what's upsetting me. You should know what's wrong. You should know what I'm
yeah.
what I want.
I get that a lot.
We can't rely on a person just knowing things automatically.
Why do they think we should know? Why should we know?
I don't know.
By what pathway would we know?
I think because more women will concentrate on like the nonverbal cues, and more women will pay attention to in their partners. So
like they're doing it with each other. Women are reading each other, and so they think men should be able to read them.
Yeah. Men are much more likely to just say what they're thinking or feeling.
And I think that's largely a socialization.
To just tell someone to try to pantomime it to them and have them misinterpret it. It just
absolutely it's always going to be easier that way, but that's not the reality. So I know some therapists, what they'll do is they'll use body language as they're talking to their patient or their client, whatever you want to call them. And when they start talking about something and they see the individual's body language change in such a way that it would indicate that they're very uncomfortable talking about this, they can then make the decision on whether or not to stay away from that conversation or focus on it. Right? It gives them kind of an insider kind of perspective to say, okay, well, this is obviously something that we shouldn't track down today. This is something that we can put in maybe the next visit, and I'm going to shy away from that, and I'm going to start focusing on this other stuff. So it can actually be very, very, very helpful for you.
Let me give you this. I do similar work, and I don't use body language. And in that same situation, if the client was uncomfortable, eventually there would come a point in the conversation where they would say, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Or I'm not comfortable. And then that's the point where I would back away or redirect. So
women have a tendency
not using body language, it doesn't seem to make much difference because at some point they're going to verbalize it.
Sometimes. Some women will not.
Oh, women.
Well, I think
I work most
people. Some people will not. I would actually say men also are pretty bad about verbalizing
but
things.
I've never had an issue in my work so far. I'm not saying it couldn't happen where I failed to read body language and could push past someone's. Usually they will always verbalize when it gets to a certain comfort point.
Well, reading body language isn't going to make you a worse therapist. It's going to make you a better therapist. So
I'm not disagreeing with
there's no downside.
I'm just saying without me having the ability to do that, I still manage to do the work and not have comfort come up as an issue.
Yeah,
because they will verbalize it at some point. So I guess it's good to have and have that extra ability to discern comfort level. But even without it, I don't find that it has become an issue.
It's like a fucking
Like the patient's
superpower.
inability to non-verbally communicate discomfort has never really been a barrier because they can always switch to verbal when they get uncomfortable enough.
Well, that you're aware of.
Yeah, that I'm aware of, but I've never had, like I said, it's never been brought to my awareness.
Yeah.
So what is
I
it?
did have an issue with a trans person that was really weird. That might have involved some of that, but
I probably did.
they did.
Yeah, Leah was saying something a little while ago, but it's really hard to hear her microphone.
Hold on, let me take my headphones off and just put on speakerphone on my phone because it's a lot better that way.
Okay, I'm gonna go get it.
Oh, that might work. Yeah.
Maybe.
So what is my feet pointing like this? What does that indicate?
Usually you're comfortable when your feet are crossed like that because there's no need to be.
I was just
so
joking.
You're not being defensive. You're comfortable. You're laid back.
Yeah.
You're comfortable with the conversation. It's not an intense conversation for you. You're fidgeting with your fingers, which could indicate two different things depending upon what your baseline would tell me. But right now you're mostly comfortable. You're almost probably a little bit bored, but you're still engaged.
I'm not. No, I'm actually not bored at all.
Okay.
This is just ADHD stuff. I just can't stop. I fidget with something all the time, and it's
Right.
usually my rings. So
now I have a baseline. Now I know that if you're
How's my audio
fidgeting,
now?
it's not a bad thing.
That's a little better, actually.
How's my audio?
This
actually a
is
lot better.
That's
actually a
way
good
better,
question.
actually.
Frank's trying to be silly, but this is actually a good question. Are
Yeah,
there like?
actually.
Yeah, go ahead. Take
So it's not so much of a trans thing, and it's more of like a meme than like I think something that's actually sociological. But there is sort of this online meme that bisexual people and gay people never sit regular. Like,
Yeah.
I've never heard that about bisexual people. I've heard that about
Wait, we never
gay
sit
people.
regular. What does that mean?
like have you ever like seen someone sit in a chair weird? Like they'll put their leg beneath them and like sit on their leg on the chair.
Actually, I
and,
don't
like,
pay
hold-
attention. I never pay attention.
I do stuff like that all the time.
Or they'll like hook their leg over the arm of a chair or something
Yeah,
like
not
that.
visual.
I do stuff like that all the
Yeah,
time.
no, I do
So
too.
I know gay people that sit normal.
No, I
Yeah,
know.
I do
I'm
too.
aware. I'm saying it's not like some like actual like.
It's like a meme thing.
physiological-
Yeah,
it's a meme.
it's like a
Why
meme.
would like white people don't wash their legs?
Well, it's like
Kind
I
of,
couldn't
yeah.
sit like Chris because my knees are absolute shit. So I sit more feminine with my legs crossed than I do masculine.
Like you put your knee over your knee.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
I
know
do that
one.
sometimes too.
And
So
sometimes I do that, and then I switch to my foot over my knee when I think people are
Yeah.
going to say, "Oh, he's sitting." That one I do know.
Fuck them. So Ragnar has
Yeah,
a really great
yeah.
question. This is really awesome. So Ragnar, I would say when you first meet new people, look at what their head is doing first and foremost. Like, are they scanning the room for other people, or are they just predominantly focused on you? When they stand opposed to you, like on the other side, are they standing akimbo to you? Like, are they standing in the same general physical space? So if their hips or if their arms are on their hips, or are they folding their arms? Little things like this can mean that they're comfortable talking to you or uncomfortable talking to you. Watching their breathing, if you can actually pay attention to it, if you can watch their breathing, that's something. If they're relaxed breathing, or if it's very quick, short breaths. But it depends on what kind of an environment you're talking about, Ragnar. So if you're at a party, usually people are going to be a little bit sauced and they're going to be a little bit more open with their body language. It's actually going to be highlighted a little bit more versus when they're not drinking. Let's say they're in a stressful environment like a Comic-Con or something like that, and they're nervous. They'll generally try to make themselves feel smaller versus when they're comfortable, they'll make themselves feel larger.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things.
Now remember, these are all also like broad generalizations, and that's not always going to be the case every single time.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, to what you're talking about, Steve, about like people at parties like being sauced, like being a lot more open. That's actually, at least in my experience, both for me and from autistic people I've talked to, it seems to be like when you're not sober, it's easier to act neurotypical.
Yeah.
At least like for me, if I'm like drunk or high, oh my God, I can act like the most, I can mask super easy like that way. Like zero effort. But like normally, like right now when I'm sober, my body language, my just how I interact with people is I
So
find
are
that
you
like
obvious? Like if I saw you in public, I would say, "Oh, that's a neurodivergent."
possibly I mostly like when I'm in public, I just kind of try to like keep to myself and avoid interacting with people, depending on the situation, of
Right
course.
part
Like
is-
obviously,
yeah.
like I mean, like obviously, if I'm going to like I don't know a game shop to go hang out with people, I'm gonna be more sociable. But like I looking at people as I'm like if I'm walking down the street, I don't like looking at people. It makes me uncomfortable to like notice
You're not
that
curious, like what the people around you are doing or what they
well
look like.
I am, but like to me it makes me feel uncomfortable because I know that I feel uncomfortable when people stare at me and I recognize that they're staring
I
at
don't
me.
even notice when people are staring at me.
People used to comment on how much I would stare. And so I got in the habit of not looking at people directly because I didn't want to make them uncomfortable because I would receive so much verbal feedback from people like, "Why are you staring at me?" And
I look at their feet.
you know, listening to feedback, that was just kind of the assumption that I made. There's like, okay, don't look at people unless they're talking to me.
Yeah.
So for,
Now,
for
I think
autistic
here.
people,
But I
Have
didn't
any of you?
encounter that till I moved here.
Have
Now,
any
if
of
I
you
People
ever?
tell me all
Have
the
any of you
time
ever?
I'm staring, and they're like, "Why are you staring?" I'm like, "I'm just looking." So, but to them, it's staring.
Yeah,
But before
right?
that, before I moved up here, nobody thought it was staring. So
What
like
were you
that's
saying,
what I'm
Chris?
saying. Some of
For
it's
me, all
cultural,
I'm
how
doing is
body
just
language is
observing
interpreted.
people, and they're like, "Why are you staring?" And it's just like I'm just looking at people because they're there, and so
to
they're in my line of sight.
yeah,
Well, Frank,
Chris
that's
was trying to
fine
say
talk
something.
for someone that's
if you
never
want to make
come on
someone like
panel yet.
uncomfortable, just like stare directly into their eyes as you're
Yours
talking
is
to them.
Santa story.
You don't have to do anything else other than stare directly at someone's eyes while you're talking to them. You can change
Yeah.
nothing else about the interaction, but if you're making like eye contact with their eyes, it
I'll
makes
tell
people
you.
uncomfortable.
I do
I'll
that
tell
all
you.
the time.
I'll
Like,
tell you
where
a
else-
way better trick. I'll tell you a way better trick with that. And this is something I learned by accident. Just from this is kind of a dirty trick. So I mean, I don't suggest people do this because this is kind of mean, especially if it's someone who's really self-absorbed. And especially if you're sitting and they're standing, okay, and they're coming in, and they're kind of like trying to like be like the aggressive kind of like making themselves kind of look kind of big kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you look at them and stare at them not in the eyes, but right
Their
above
forehead.
their eyes,
Yeah.
right
Makes
above
them
their
feel
eyes,
really uncomfortable.
right.
their
It
forehead,
makes
their
it
third
yeah.
eye?
You stare at their forehead because like in their brain is perceiving that you're making eye contact, but you're not, and therefore it like they were trying.
Oh,
And
it like
it's
starts
it
them out.
creates
Same
this
part of the brain as the uncanny valley.
it creates a cognitive dissonance in the person's
I want to
brain,
try that.
and they will
It-
almost
yeah.
every time
I
they
want
will
someone to
sit
be
down
aggressive.
or back away, or they will get super uncomfortable. It's kind of mean. It really is. It's like something like whenever when I did that I figured that out by accident one day, and I felt like a supervillain or something like that.
Oh, you figured this out?
You can there's
yeah.
yeah, you can do other things too. Like if
Okay.
you're engaged with a person that you're really, really interested in, scan from the left eye to the right eye frequently.
Yes.
Wait, say that
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
interested in someone,
If you move from looking directly at the left eye to the right eye to the left eye
Their
to the
eye,
right eye,
like-
yes, they will
just look
perceive
at
that.
one eye at a time.
Yes, actually,
Yeah, just look at one
this
eye at a
is-
time.
This
Weird,
is
but
a,
it's so weird to me.
I don't know. I don't know.
My
I don't know if anyone has like noticed this in like movies that have like romances, and you have like two characters who are like romantically involved or whatever, and they're staring at each other. You'll notice that whenever like the camera pans to one person's face, their eyes are like going back and forth, left and right.
Yeah.
Okay, but how close are they standing? Because if you're standing like, more than like 2 or 3 feet apart from a person, it's gonna get hard to have that romantic "I like you" and looking back and
Yeah,
forth.
no. It's
You're just gonna
it's-
look weird, but like, okay,
Close
getting
up.
to that position where you're that close to a person, it's probably going to imply that there's already some kind of connection between you to begin with.
yeah.
Sometimes
Because
if you're
you're
at a
just like
party
walking
that's
up to
very
a
tight,
woman and just like you're like 2 inches from her face, she's gonna be like, "You get away from me."
well, I mean, if you're at a party and you're talking to someone and it's really loud, usually two people will stand side to side with their head down, listening intently, and that's when you can do that. When you look up, you can look at both of their eyes, and it doesn't feel creepy. But something that I want to address really quick is like, once you learn how to read body language, you're actually probably the most dangerous person in the fucking room.
Oh yeah.
And
That's
if
true.
someone's reading my body language and I can tell that they're reading my body language, the first fucking thing that goes off in my head is why.
Yeah.
Like, why are you reading my body language so
I thought
intently?
we agreed that it's something that everybody does. Like now,
By the
like,
way, chat, don't use our body language advice for evil purposes.
Yes.
oh yeah, this is an entertainment.
That's what I'm
Don't-
saying.
channel.
Well,
We
that's
don't
exactly what I
listen
meant by
to anything we
yeah,
say about it.
the eyebrow thing. I'm serious. Like that's something I really kind of hesitate to say because like seriously, you can intimidate someone so easily with that, and it's without barely doing anything, and you don't even have to like you don't have to get up or stand up, or you can just like sit back
Yeah.
and just like stare at them like this, and they will feel small, and you can see it in their eyes, and it's just like I tried this out a few times just like to see if like I was just imagining things or not, and it worked so well it creeped me out. So I don't do it anymore.
Yeah,
I don't do it.
Cotton read, like-
I won't do that. I won't do that anymore because like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm being evil. It
Yeah,
feels like
all of
it's
our
such an
advice
easy.
here is conditional on the whatever the Google thing is. Don't be evil.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Don't, yeah. I mean, it is useful if you're in a situation where someone is trying to be physically intimidating towards you. If they're being an asshole, someone's being a really jerk off or something like that, and like they're just coming at you, and they're just like, you can use that as a way to get out of that situation with it. But it actually helps you de-escalate it. It'll de-escalate it because they'll back down without you having to
Can they help
actually
you
put
win
any
chess?
physical.
Yeah. It's like a de-escalation kind of a non confrontational de-escalation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and-
law
I mean, and-
enforcement uses body language all the fucking time, especially investigators.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Investigators do a lot.
Like you can watch what someone's doing. So the image, like if you put your palm up, like I don't know, right? If you put your palm up, or if you say I have no idea what happened to that person, and your palms are facing up, that can be a sign that you're asking for a higher power. You're asking them to believe you, right? Whereas if you put your palm downwards and you're like, I don't know that person and I don't know what happened to them, it comes across more as confident and honest. And these are things that police officers look for.
Yeah.
Something also police officers also misuse and abuse in a lot of ways to try to I've watched, if you watched like, you know, there's several of those channels that are like that they focus on they just show like police interrogation videos and stuff like that, and they always have like this voice that comes on and explains the psychology of everything the person does, and I'm like, and some of the things I'm like, yeah, that seems pretty astute, and some of them I'm like, yeah, that's a bit of a stretch there, buddy.
The most amazing one that I ever saw.
You're making a lot of inferences from somebody from someone like looking to the side like 1 second, you know, and it's like see right there where they look to the side, that means they're really thinking about it.
So there was a couple of cases there where what they did was they watched the tape and they could see that when they struck a nerve with someone there, so this person was shaking their legs much like what you were doing earlier, and every time they would ask them a question about a certain thing, their leg would stop. And then they knew that they needed to go back in there and start focusing on that specific thing. And it turns out those were triggers for memories that person was holding, because it's really hard to lie and do these other body language movements that we're so used to at the same time. Yeah. So what will happen is when a person lies, usually a movement will stop, or another movement, a very subtle movement, like the itch of a nose. Like if you're asking someone questions and you think that they're lying, or you know that they're lying, right? But they itch their nose every time they lie. You know that every time they itch their nose, you need to investigate that even further. Yeah. So these are tactics that they use.
A negative aspect of it is this is one of the reasons why there are a lot of people in the true crime community that don't like body language analysis channels on YouTube, because of the fact that they will go over cases and kind of muddy the waters for like the from the perspective of the audience. Because
I agree.
You are making a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, and
body language
media
analysis things can be way overly minute. They focus too much on minutia and not enough on like things that really matter in those situations. I mean,
like,
someone's nervous when they're in an interrogation room.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they were honest with themselves,
by the police, I don't care if you've done nothing wrong. You're gonna be fucking nervous.
I'm
sorry.
Nervous,
Like, I mean, I once got pulled over. I once got pulled over by not one or two, but for some reason, like I had one cop that followed me for like an hour, and then another cop joined him right behind as I was supposed to get this town, and ultimately there was 5 cop cars around me, and I got out of the car like thinking I was going to get murdered. Like I was thinking like these cops have decided.
You thought
like
the cop was going to murder you?
Well, I mean,
this is out in rural. This is out in rural Arkansas. Okay, this is out in rural Arkansas.
You think cops just murder people on traffic stops in rural Arkansas?
It sure
I mean,
felt
that's
like
the
that.
first thing going through his head.
If they
Hey,
think
you
you're a
had
fugitive
5
running
cop
from the
cars
law.
out there. I didn't know what was going on. I was just I was just scared. I had nothing. I've done nothing wrong.
Hey Jeff, I understand your like incredulity. However, like given the fact that so many police officers do so much fucked up shit,
Like
I don't
murder
think
people on a traffic stop?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, first off, Philando Castile would very much like to speak to you,
Oh,
but he
yeah.
can't because he's fucking dead.
Yeah.
Well,
At a traffic
to me,
stop.
it was like, to me, the reason it scared me, it's not like they were
They
planning on murdering
killed
me,
him
Jeff.
for
I didn't think they were planning on murdering me. It's the fact that they must have thought that I was some kind of a threat in order to have that many
they were probably
many
doing
cops.
their whatever. I mean, that happens a lot, believe it or not, to neurodivergent people. I partner with the Seattle Police Department, and we were going to do this little education module on helping them understand for this reason, because we do get targeted a lot as threats and stuff like that.
Okay,
Right,
well,
so
in my head,
But
I was
would never
thinking,
think like if a cop stopped me, if I saw flashing lights, and I would never think, oh my God, they're going to murder me.
That's not what I'm saying. There was 5 cars, and that made me think that they must think that I'm like dangerous or something like that. And when cops think that you're a danger, there's a much higher chance that they might be nervous or something and pull a gun on you. I mean, like that just makes sense. It's like, why is there 5 cop cars?
He's just illustrating the reason why he was nervous, and it shouldn't be in any way an indication of his guilt just because he's nervous around cops. It's just an illustration of like leading up to why he was feeling that way, to illustrate the point that body language analysis cannot always be factual and accurate on its own. Well, just because you're nervous doesn't mean you're guilty.
My point is that whenever they asked me to step out of the car, and I did everything they said. I didn't argue or anything. I did everything they said. When they stepped out of the car, the first thing the cop said to me was, "You look a little nervous, boy. What you hiding?" And I was like,
That sounds like an Arkansas cop.
The best thing you can do in those cases is point out why you're nervous. You've got 5 cop cars here for a traffic stop. Why shouldn't I be fucking nervous?
Well, I didn't say it like that, but I was very polite. I was like, sir, I'm nervous because there's 5 cop cars, and I don't know what I did. I have no idea why you pulled me over, and it just seems like it just makes me very nervous. It seems like there's a lot of people here for like, I mean, I don't even know what you're pulling me over for. And he's like, well, we just got to search your, I guess they must have thought I was transporting drugs or something like that. I mean, which is fine.
Your car could have made a description.
Yeah. And I wasn't, and they searched my car. They brought the dog over and looked through my car and all that stuff like that. And I ended up getting but his excuse for pulling me over was like, I even was driving perfectly. His excuse for pulling me over is I was driving too close to that white line for too long.
Oh my God. Fucking cops will try and like, I mean, for what it's worth, like cops do like intentionally try and invent reasons to pull people over. That's like,
oh yeah, well, I mean,
how do they get away with that? How do they get away with just making up things to charge people with?
Well, first off,
they didn't charge me. They didn't charge me.
Yeah, they don't charge people. It's not like charging. It's like they will make up things so that they have an excuse.
Just for fun, because they like making more work for themselves.
No, because they needed an excuse to pull me over so they could search my car for drugs because they thought I was transporting drugs. They didn't tell me that for sure, but I'm guessing
I would
brought the drug dog over. So
yeah, I would argue that making up reasons to pull people over, even if you potentially suspect their vehicle of being like involved, unless a police officer has a actual reasonable reason.
I'll be right back.
To pull someone over.
What do you think they just randomly put with no reason? Why would they pull someone over with no reason?
Well, no, I mean they do usually have a reason, but it's usually not sufficient, right? So like
according to you, but does the department policy spell out what's reasonable in these situations?
Yes, they do.
Yes, but also like there are certain
I know Liv's not going to be happy with it.
like for instance, you can't be pulled over because your car matches the description of a car that's they know is a drug car. They can't pull over like
Why?
if
I
there's
would want them to be able to do that.
Because they're
be-
traffic cops, and it's not a moving violation.
yeah, like they can't. They have to. they
Oh,
have
but
to,
like the murder cops could, just not the traffic cops.
I mean,
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like investigators or people who are like actually working on the case, and the people working directly for them could, but like your average like beat cop who's doing the traffic stuff.
So on the
Shouldn't be
TV
able to.
shows, when they say like put out a call for we got a suspect in a red car or whatever,
Yeah, no, that's a different thing.
all points bulletin, the cops are not actually able to stop that red car. Only certain
well,
cops.
I mean,
Maybe
it
depending
actually
on
depends.
the there's different laws in every city. Every city is like, actually, if you actually look through like the police
Yeah.
laws of like any
That's
average
what I. That's
town,
why.
Also,
yeah,
they
that's
differ so
my
great. They
serious
differ so
conversation
greatly.
too.
also a lot of it has to do with like the context. Like for instance, if someone did a drive-by and like they know the car that did the drive-by, like they have, I don't know, video of it, then and like they're attempting to stop somebody who like did a drive-by 5 minutes ago, then yeah, beat cops do actually have
Yeah.
the jurisdiction. Typically they have jurisdiction to actually do that, but aside from like very open and explicit situations like that, they do have to like they have to actually have a reason to pull you over, like a traffic
Yeah, they
violation or
usually
some
do.
moving
Like,
violation, something like
I
that.
used to watch Cops, this show, all the time. There was years and years of it, and I've never
Yeah, I
seen them
know.
pull
And
someone over without. And we're just
well,
pulling you over, man, just to
and
pull you
ci-
No,
over.
no. They never
cities
say we're just pulling you over. They never
yeah,
say that
and
because
bigger
if they
cities
said that, that's illegal.
bigger cities have like more like, like have more they have broader terms and things they can use like that. But like in rural counties and stuff like that, where like they have different laws and different specific regulations for the cops to follow. And so the reason I ended up figuring out that the reason that the guy followed me for an hour is because like where he started following me, he wasn't in his jurisdiction yet. He pulled me over as soon as I crossed the line into his jurisdiction. He was going to work and he saw me and he thought that I mean, I figured this out just because the fact that it was an Ashdown cop and I wasn't in Ashdown whenever these are following me. And so like he had to wait till I crossed the Ashdown city limits, which is right when they pulled me over. As soon as I crossed that line, that sign that said Ashdown city limits, that's when they pulled me over. So I know that's the reason he followed me for so long. But he at the same time, like he must have decided that because I was driving so carefully the whole time, because I drove so carefully and so straight, he must decide that I must be doing something illegal because like nobody
Or
drives like
maybe
that,
that it bear investigating. Maybe not that you're doing something illegal, but let me check this out.
Well, yeah,
Sure.
I mean, they
Yeah,
can
whatever.
follow
Find
you
out
and
if
like
you
run
might
your
be doing something like.
yeah.
But
they totally
it made me very nervous because not because I'm just automatically afraid of cops, but because like the sheriff's SUV and the car that was following me and three other cop cars showed up, all
Yeah,
at this
I
one traffic stop,
understand
and I
that
was
seemed
just
like
like
a little bit of an
I was
overreaction for
yeah
just
I
driving
was
too
just
close
like
to the line. But
I
well,
was just
I mean,
I was afraid. I mean, I was thinking to myself, God, like if they went through this much trouble, like there's no way they're gonna they're not gonna like find something. They're gonna find something to do to put me in jail or something. Like they must be really certain, and cops around there are like that too. And like there are cops there. And like there's a town called Nash there that's really notorious for it does not matter like what you're doing or what, they will find a way. They will invent things to take you to jail for. They will do things like that just because like they're just assholes. I mean, like the cops there are just like they're just the high school bullies
yeah,
from.
and I'm sure they get away. I'm sure there's cops that can just jail
Yeah.
anybody they want for fun and get away with it. That
Well, I mean,
sounds
that's
so
There are
incredible.
this is tiny. These are tiny Texas
Yeah,
Arkansas
even in
towns. Like,
tiny Texas towns, it sounds so credible that there's no accountability, that they could just Wild West lock up whoever they want and laugh about it for fun.
Jeff, there
Like they
there
have
there is
nothing to do in these
accountability.
rural towns,
Jeff,
but lock up
Jeff,
people for
there
fun.
is accountability in things
I'm
like
just
if
not that cynical about humanity.
if a
I'm
police
sorry,
officer
even
does
rural
something,
people.
if a police officer expressly and openly and like on video like breaks the law, usually they can't like fully get away from those consequences. However, it's much easier for them to get away with, say, for instance, making up something to pull someone over, like they can get away with that very easily, because usually what they do is they go like, okay, I saw you riding too close to that line, which isn't illegal, but a cop could pull you over, and there's nothing you can do. You can't tell the cop no, even if
They
you
call
weren't
that
breaking
having
the law.
suspicion. They
Yeah.
have
You can
reasonable
challenge
suspicion
traffic
that
charges.
maybe you
Yeah.
might be under the influence of something.
Yeah, and
Or
they
I'm,
can
something
I'm
like
not
that, yeah.
buying your version of cop psychology. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I'm not
I mean,
cynical
okay,
enough to
Well,
believe
we're
how-
that
how-
find
how- how about
that
this?
you
That's the
know they
motive of
always
most
have
cops.
nefarious purposes, and that maybe that is stretching it to say that every single cop is always doing everything with nefarious intentions.
Absolutely
just
not.
to
I don't
see
think that at
people
all.
no.
I actually,
But
I
I do
have
think-
I have very good interactions with the cops here in Irving. I have had very good interactions with the cops here in Irving.
But I
I've,
do
like,
think this is a problem in smaller towns.
In smaller towns, I mean, I have had really good
Is
interactions
it
with the cops.
like
I've really
just by
bad.
virtue of being a small town? Is there data that small towns have worse? Like big cities
Okay,
have cop.
how about?
too
Let me tell you this.
This is anecdotal, but I've had better experiences with police in smaller areas than in larger ones. But
Yeah,
purely anecdotal.
it depends.
I
Purely
smell some
anecdotal.
narrative building going on.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
how about does this seem like legitimate to you, Jeff? Like this is the only time I got close to getting arrested one time ever. Only time I ever got I actually had I've had handcuffs put on me twice, but one of those times was complete bullshit. This other time was maybe a little bit more bullshit. But
I wanna
this
hear
time,
your
okay,
story too, but go ahead.
okay. Look, this is I was never fully booked or arrested or anything, but I had handcuffs put on me twice, by cops, and
I have to.
and so like I got a call from a cop whenever I was living in Texas County. I had just moved back there. I hadn't been there very long, but I got a call from this cop. I had no idea how he even got my number, because I still don't know how he got my number. But he called me directly on my cell phone, and he said that I guess he found something. Because I guess I said something on Facebook. Literally, I said something on Facebook about working at this place, Lasig, the e-cig company, and
What
somehow
company?
like
An
this
e-cig company.
an e-cig company that I worked for back in the day, and
What?
E-cig.
vaping.
E-cigarette.
Oh, e-cig.
Vaping.
Okay, all right.
Vaping. Yeah, it's a vape company, I guess.
Right.
Nowadays we call it vape, but we used to call it e-cigs. Anyway, and so he found my number somehow through the fact that I said I worked for them on Facebook. I guess I didn't have it listed in my profile or something, but I said something to somebody on Facebook. And he called me. I don't know how he got my number, but he called me and told me that that I had an outstanding ticket from and I hadn't lived there in like
That sounds
almost
like a
10 years.
scam.
Okay, yeah, it does sound like it, and he said he had an outstanding ticket, but they were doing an amnesty program right now, and so even though I had this outstanding ticket, this was these Nash cops I'm talking about, the corrupt, like this place that's really corrupt, and he said and he seemed really nice on the phone. He was like, yeah, well, we have this amnesty program though, and it's just an $80 ticket. If you wouldn't mind just coming down and taking care of that, we could all cleared up for you. And I had a job, I was working, and I was like, okay, I'll come pay the $80, no big deal. So I drove down to the police station in Nash. I drove down there and went in there, and I said, I was told on the phone that I just need to come pay, and I had the money, I had the $80 in my hand and everything, and I went down there to pay it, and then he's like, oh, can you come into my office for a second here and sit here? He's like, well, yeah, when I called you, I wasn't paying it, I wasn't paying that much attention, but it seems like this ticket is actually a lot older than I thought, so that's going to be a lot more like $800. And I was like, what? $800? I don't have $800 on what are you talking about? And he's like, well, if you don't have $800, then I guess you need to come right over here, sir, and stand against this wall. And they put the handcuffs on me. They took mug shots.
So
They
you
did all
saying
this
they
stuff.
tricked you on purpose? You know that for a fact?
Yes, absolutely.
Honestly,
Absolutely. It tricked me on purpose, and the ticket was never
How
that
do
much.
you know this for? How do you know this for a fact?
I was
Because
going
he
to
lied
say there's probably some
Never
instances
mind.
when you
Jeff,
have a
never
really
mind.
bad filing
Never mind.
system.
I would think you'd give me a little more charitability than that. I mean, that's like
that I wouldn't ask for evidence like I do every single other person that comes on the street. You
I mean, why would I lie about this?
When have
I
you
mean,
seen me do that with anyone? I don't think it's unreasonable to ask how you know they did it on purpose, especially if that's the whole point of your story. Because you're trying to create a narrative about cops, but you don't want to bring evidence to back it up. And then when I challenge
I'm not making a narrative about cops.
This is the
I'm
pattern that emerged the other day with us too. I'm
not
gonna,
making a
If I
narrative
could
about
interject and
there's no
say,
way I'm gonna
to be the
put-
medium, to
subject
be the
myself to
middle ground between the two of you, if I might interject and say that it could be either or, because of this reason. I had a circumstance where I got pulled over and I got put in cuffs, and it took getting all the way to the magistrate's office when I was about to appear before the judge before the cops realized that they arrested the wrong girl. The girl that they were looking for had the same name as me, but they didn't run my social security number.
Yeah.
And so
What
they
happened?
literally made the wrong arrest. And
What
so
did they do?
honestly, I think a lot of it is attributed to the fact that they want to be lazy sometimes, and they don't want to follow the proper steps. To
I
just
mean,
go
like,
one
that's-
step further and
that's
run a
what,
person's social security number to make sure they have the right person.
I mean, that's
And so
that's
it
why
isn't part lazy,
Brianna
not
Williams
necessarily
died.
nefariousness, but just bad protocol, bad process, bad policing, because they're idiots. And then on the other side of that, in Chris's situation, I honestly feel like that guy probably was just trying to be a douchebag that day, and he very well could have just been like, okay, you know what, we're going to give you an opportunity to straighten this out. We'll put you out on a PR, or whatever, and we'll let you go. That way you can come back with the money, but maybe just put you like on bond or something. That way they know that you're not going to flee and try to get out of paying $800 that you owe. But yeah, that guy honestly probably just wanted to be a douchebag that day because he had nothing better to do. And so I totally understand Chris's
Or like,
sentiment.
what if maybe he didn't realize that there was more? Like he was
How would he not realize that?
In which case,
How
I
do
would
you
say
know? That's what I'm asking.
So
How do you
Jeff,
know?
Jeff. Okay, so let's just say.
Okay, so he was either
you're right.
inept. He was either inept or dishonest.
Yes,
which
any
one
of
would you
those
prefer?
possibilities, yes. Any
It
of those
can be
possibilities.
both sometimes.
But it's
It can
only
be
one of
both
two. It
sometimes.
has to be inept. He has to be a moron. He has to be a fucking moron, or he has to be fucking corrupt.
A lot
It's
of
one of the two
dishonest
things.
people are
there are
morons.
possibilities.
It doesn't always have to be one or the other. A lot of stupid people out there are also, and that's honestly why they do that, is because they are stupid and they always think that they can get away with being a crappy person.
Carl,
But
there was no
I
evidence
hate to, but
provided.
I'm gonna actually have to hop out because I gotta go get ready for my stream.
Yeah, and I have
Okay,
to go
Leah.
today,
You guys
too.
know
I
real
have
quick.
I have work at the top of the hour.
What is your stream? Are you doing open
I'm
panel?
just gonna be
I might
chill.
stop by.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe.
I'm just chilling, chatting 5 p.m. EST over on my channel. So in about like a half hour.
That's perfect because I have to end in a half hour, so y'all can go to Leah's if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you guys wanna hop over to my channel.
I might stop by and talk. I might stop by and over and talk to you.
No, I do have a cop story, Ragnar, and I'm gonna tell it.
All right, I'll see you guys.
So
All right, bye,
if
Leah.
I can interject here really quick. So I would tend to believe Chris on this one because it's not uncommon for police departments to do this, but more so, I find it so hard to believe that the police officer didn't know that it was older than it was.
Why is that hard to believe?
Because again, we come back to the fact that he's either incompetent or he's intentionally.
That's much more credible to me, especially in small.
I don't think so, because I cannot accept that police officers are that fucking incompetent. They can't look at a date.
In Louisiana.
Well, so
And it just happened to be 10 times more than they. I mean, he looked it up on the computer when I got there.
The point is, because
He
one
would've pulled
thing
up
we
the computer in the
talk
first
about
place.
on this channel, and it's a particular passion of mine, is epistemology. It's how do we know? How do we determine in this? And y'all want to just tell stories, and when I want to do some kind of rational analysis and dig further to like, well, let's see, how can we maybe get at the truth of the situation? All of a sudden, I'm the bad guy. Y'all just want to go off of belief and intuition and go along with your story. And I get frustrated because one of the things I set this channel up was for people who do geek out on like using philosophical techniques to get at the deeper truth of the situation. And I do that all the time on this channel. And all of a sudden, Chris, you've been having these reactions. And I don't am I doing it differently? Am I doing something that I have never done before?
I just feel like
why all of a sudden
it's just because
is there this pushback when I try to do the very thing that I set this channel up to do?
It's just that we've been friends for a while. You know me pretty well. I would just like a little more charitability from you in your interpretations of the things I say.
Don't exempt you from evidence and like exempt you from philosophical discussion. I don't know.
No, but not to assume the worst of whatever I'm saying.
I'm
I feel
not
like you
assuming the
assume.
worst. I'm treating your story like I would treat any other person that told me that story.
So if I can give advice, I can say I would say, Chris, I would tend to believe that you're telling me the truth. However, can we investigate this more and find where we can definitively prove that this was actually the case?
To a friend.
Well, that is being charitable because you're focused on first and foremost acknowledging his feelings.
I'm doing something negative, or I'm not doing something that a friend would do, and I'm being set up in a certain role when I do that in these situations, and it happened on the other stream 2 or 3 times with the fairy story.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
With me and Chris that has been emerging over the last week or so that I'm noticing, and I like to address these things when they happen instead of like letting them get worse.
No, I understand.
And for what it's worth, I do think
I don't know if Chris is frozen.
I've done.
I was reading a comment. That's all.
Yeah,
I was reading a comment.
I've done this with Jeff more than once, which I very much regret and wish I hadn't, because I do feel that oftentimes I am more just overly critical of Jeff, more just because. So for me, it's like an emotion thing. So like that's that kind of.
You know what?
Gets in the way of us.
Lib, I'm going to interrupt you just 1 second, because I just realized something, and I want to get this out before I forget it. I will say, Jeff, I've been going through a lot lately, and I probably am more emotionally vulnerable and more sensitive to things than I normally have been in the past, just in this last week or so, because I've been really, really, really stressed. I've got a lot of things going on, and so like it probably is that, and I am sorry for that. I genuinely, I'm fighting off tears now because I'm realizing that, and I am really sorry. I am.
Well, let's talk later today, because I want to hear what's going on with you.
It's nothing that you haven't heard before. It's just the same life stuff. I've just been really stressed lately. So
are you going through a process right now where you, like, let's say that you're going through a VA or something like that? Are you going through a process with any kind of medical issues that you feel that people aren't listening to you and you're not feeling heard?
I don't know about that really. It's the same stuff, because I have talked about it before. I've talked about the stuff that's happening on stream. It's like we're being like Lindsay's like disability thing. She went to the court hearing almost 3 weeks ago now, and we still haven't heard back. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. I got this medical thing coming up in a few days that determines that for me, and then we've had all these troubles with, like, we try to get a car for it just, and so I've been driving around doing all this like stupid stuff, trying to like sell clothes and stuff and everything, trying to make enough money to get by and everything. And it's just I haven't been sleeping very much at all. I've been sleeping even less than normal, except for the few days that like I've been like, when I have, like the other day, like I slept for like 14 hours and I didn't even realize I'd even gone to sleep. Wow. And then other than that I'm not sleeping, and so I will say that I am, it's not personal, Jeff. It's not. I am in a high stress state, and I'm not, and really until now I haven't acknowledged it even to myself.
I did not know any of this until just now. And going back to body language, is there a way that anybody could have?
No, there's no way you could have known. I don't think so. I mean, if there was body language or something, like, I don't know. I mean, that's not your fault.
I was in the bathroom. That's why I wasn't watching.
It's not your fault anyway. It's not your fault regardless. Like I said, I had to acknowledge it to myself. Like I didn't fully realize it until I was in this situation right now. I was thinking about it.
I knew you were busy, and I knew you had a lot of appointments, and I knew you were you had like the sore throat, but that's all I knew. I did not know what you just.
Yeah,
described.
because I haven't been. Well, if you know, I haven't been on Discord much. I haven't been because I've constantly been. I've been trying to like the best I can like hustle and trying to get all this like stuff done to try to like make ends meet and like just like and so like I do apologize for that. I didn't realize I was doing it until just now. Like this isn't like something like I've been holding back. This is like something like I just realized as we were talking, and I'm just like, oh shit, I'm being overly sensitive because of everything else that's going on.
Well, mad respect to you for saying that and apologizing. And I was gonna ask one more question about the cop stuff, but I think I'd much rather let laying dogs lie.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, the cop thing. I mean, the cop thing is true. That happened. Yeah. It's a common story around there. Around if you grew up in Texarkana, which I hope to God no one here did, because it's a horrible place. I hope that I regret growing up in. I really do. I'm not looking forward to moving back to. But if anybody that grows up there knows that if pretty much you avoid Nash at all costs, you avoid driving through there at all costs, because the cops there will pull you over for like going 1 mile over the speed limit, and they will throw the book at you for anything they can. It's just like it's a speed trap. It's like one of those classic speed traps, like something you'd see on a TV show, they'll drag you into court for like going a couple of miles of the speed limit and try to that's just what they do there. Yeah. And what happened to me in that situation, I mean, I don't see how you can see anything but extortion, because after they put the cuffs on me and they took the mugshot and everything, they said, well, if you know anybody that you can get the money from, we'll let you go over the phone there and make phone calls. And so I did that. I went over to the phone and I called my employer, and he actually he sent me a Western Union amount for the money and got me out of the situation.
Were you living in a different county than this police station?
Probably legal then.
I'm sure it was all legal. I said it wasn't ethical.
Yeah. Were you living in a different county when this happened than where the ticket was done?
I had just moved back. And not only that, but I know I paid that ticket too, but I guess they didn't record it, because it was a ticket I got for. I didn't have my proof of insurance on me. I didn't have to pay it. All I had to do is go in and show my proof of insurance, which I did, but they never took it off the books. And so then all that time later, they but so it's not a big deal. It really wasn't a big deal. It was nothing to get upset about. I realized that now that I'm just overly sensitive, because I just feel like I'm just like because Jeff, you really are one of my best friends in the world, and like I just want you to know that it's so like I get sensitive about it, because it's like when I just felt like it made me feel like you're coming after me or something like that. It's stupid. It's silly. It's not. You weren't, and I know that you didn't intend it that way. But that's how I felt at that moment. Just because I'm just in a very hypersensitive state right now. So.
Now, if I might interject, I do think that if the incompetence part, probably, I actually do fully believe the incompetence part on the first part of that, which is you go in, show your proof of insurance, and then you weren't supposed to pay anything. I could totally believe that someone could make that mistake of not
clearing it off the books or
clearing it off the books.
And I didn't get a proof or receipt or anything at the time. I just went in. I was 10 years younger. Okay. I was 10 years younger whenever this happened. I wasn't quite 10, but like 8.5 years. Yeah. And so I went in and gave them the proof of the insurance, and they were like, all right, you're good to go. And I walked out.
Yeah. It's weird that they didn't have. So was there a bench warrant against you, or did they just arrest you due to the amount of time?
They didn't even. I don't even know there was a bench warrant. Like he called me on the phone and asked me to come in.
Yeah, that's interesting, because usually if you miss a court date, they will issue a bench warrant for your arrest because you skipped on your court date. So the fact that you didn't have one of those is pretty fucking concerning to me.
I think again the bench warrant thing kind of indicates that the lack of a bench warrant indicates to me that there was some form of incompetence on the initial interactions. The second interactions, I don't know. It could be incompetence. It could be some, maybe not malice, but
it should have been a red flag to the cop that's looking at it. He'd be like, well, you don't have a bench warrant, which means you went to your court date. So why wasn't this cleared?
Yeah.
That to me would express some level of competence. So yeah, I mean, like I understand how Chris felt about the situation as it was, and it was incredibly unethical what they did. But the more I look at it, the more I'm looking at incompetence rather than nefarious intent.
Yeah, you're probably right. It probably, I mean, it certainly felt like I was tricked into coming in there so they could arrest me.
Yeah.
But maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was incompetence.
I would say that from what I understand of cops, when you see sort of like, I guess, quote unquote malice, it's usually in regards to them trying to ticket you, not necessarily arrest. Except for, I guess, there are definitely situations where cops definitely do malice to arrest. But broadly speaking, when I'm talking about like actual like institutional problems with the cops, it's usually malice in that they're finding reasons to ticket people so that they can reach a quota, so that they and like this is a common like small town thing, because a lot of small towns, especially like there was one town, Somerville.
Hey, I'm gonna head out really quick, guys. It was good talking to you guys. We'll see you later.
Thanks, Steve. See you later.
Bye, Steve.
There's one town that was it's basically a speed trap. Like the entire town.
Yeah, we have speed trap towns in Louisiana. I know exactly what those are.
Yeah,
and everybody knows them, and they know to avoid them or to prepare when they go through them or whatever. So
and
I totally believe that.
I'm not a fan of like that.
It's the trickery I was questioning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm of the opinion I don't like that towns like focus on that kind of thing. Quotas are like really bad for police officers. They encourage them to find crimes to ticket people for rather than like ticket people who are like quotas. I'm not a fan of quotas, and they're unfortunately very common across the nation.
Yeah, in Louisiana, in the prison, they trade prison. They do prison swaps because they fill the empty prisons with the full prisons, and they do prisoner exchanges between them, like trading, like football players do draft picks and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's not great. Again, this is why I harp so much on, I think, like, you know, police in America need massive reforms. But like the reforms ought to be aimed at helping the police officers do their job of serving the public better, rather than being sort of an antagonistic force to the public. The police being antagonistic to civilians is as far as like Western democracies are concerned, it's an American thing. If you go to Europe, these types of antagonistic relationships are not nearly as pervasive in Europe as they are here.
You mean with cops?
Yes, with cops.
The antagonism is coming from y'all. I don't have a problem with cops. I'm not antagonist.
No. I'm saying like so like no. I mean like I mean broadly speaking, right? So like police officers view the public as like a
but have you seen the public that they have the police?
Sure, but I mean that this isn't the case in Europe, and I would argue Europe is it's also bad.
Well, can we pick up this topic tomorrow, because this is a good one, especially the quota thing. I think that would be a really good practical.
I thought quotas were against the law now.
You thought what?
They're supposed to be, but I know that I've talked to cops that told me they had them.
It depends on your jurisdiction.
I only have a few minutes, and I got to wrap up. I want to talk to Chris before we go. Yeah,
so y'all can go ahead and have your talk. I'll head out. I actually need to go soon anyways. I got to go update my driver's license.
Oh, good. That's fun.
Yeah.
I thought I had to do, I thought I had to do that this year, and it turns out I tried to do it online, and it wouldn't let me until I looked at my license again and realized it was next year.
Yeah, I need to do that because I'm about to fly down to Texas.
I was really frustrated. I was like, well, I just want to renew my license. Let me renew it. And it wouldn't let me renew it. And then I found out it was because it wasn't due next year.
Yeah.
How many years is between your renewal?
I think it's like 7.
Yeah, it's like 7, something like that in Texas.
5 or
it's
7. Yeah, usually.
We're 8 years here.
I gotta go, y'all.
Okay.
All right.
Later, guys.
Be well.
Take care. We'll be here tomorrow. No, not you, Chris.
I know.
Stay here.
I didn't go
A
anywhere.
cult said I should listen back to it. I think it would be helpful. I went back and watched the fairy one the other day where this first happened. And I did not like,
that was probably on me,
I did not
too.
like what I saw about from myself. And I kept saying that why are you reacting different? I'm not doing anything different. There's nothing different about this time. But there was something different that day. I was coming across a certain way. Some people said I was mean. You said I was mocking. I agree there was something in my expression that day. It wasn't in my head when I was talking. I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't intending to be there. But when I went back and watched it, I did see. I went back and watched it, and I'm like, I do not like that person. That person in that chair with that shirt on and the white microphone, I do not like that person right now. I was having the same reaction. So I want to own my part of it. It wasn't all you. There was something coming off of me that day. I still don't know what it was because I wasn't aware of it at the time. But I want to at least validate that part of it and own that part of it.
And I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate that. I mean, and for my part, like I said, it was the same thing as it was today for me. It wasn't anything different. I'm just hyper stressed and.
Well, let's talk later because tonight's Survivor and I have my
we'll talk
the next hour or so. But I'll have a lot of time between that and Survivor tonight. So let's catch up and check.
We'll talk before or after Survivor. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I am actually looking forward to it. I've actually missed watching Survivor the last few days because you guys have been watching Big Brother, and I started to tune into it a couple times, but I just can't get into it. I don't know.
The thing I like about Big Brother that's different from Survivor. Survivor has the tribal council where there's a vote, so there's a hierarchy, but it's kind of a fluid hierarchy that emerges each tribal council. And Big Brother forces them to artificially create a dominance hierarchy each week. And they have a new person at the top of the pyramid, and that person decides who's at the bottom that week. And then the group picks from the bottom. So you actually get to see the hierarchies, like their design as part of the game. And so they have a more of a sharper dynamic to them that makes the game play better.
I haven't watched it. I would need to watch the whole season, I guess, because I only seen little clips. It just didn't pull me into it. But I mean, I'm in the future. I'll probably try to check it out more.
Yeah, I think it's worth at least watching one season for
Yeah, it's worth me watching an entire season
just for gaming, to see how.
I honestly haven't given it much of a chance since Big Brother started way back when. So. Yeah. So I'll give it another chance. Anyway, but yeah, go to your appointment. Everything's cool. We're cool, man. Don't worry.
I'm sure.
Yeah, we were cool before anyway. I mean, I haven't been like.
I thought we were too when you said on the stream that everything was fine. I didn't. That wasn't a lie. I really was. But I didn't realize. I honestly until that moment just now on stream, I didn't realize what was happening with me. I wasn't acknowledging it because I was obfuscating that from myself because it's like acknowledging it. It makes it more real. It makes the stress more real and stuff like that. So it's something that I was really doing that anyway. But yeah, go to your appointment, man. I'll see you later in Survivor and Ragnar and everybody else in the comments. Thank you for everybody saying all the nice things. I really appreciate it. You guys all have a great day and come by and watch Survivor if you feel like it. Yeah, we'll be on the Discord.
It's been a good season so far. It's been been a good season.
Early. We're only 3 or 4 episodes in. So
yeah, 3 or 4 episodes. Yeah, it's still early enough, and it's also really, it's really dramatic because there's one tribe that's really fucking up a lot.
3 different tribes, and they all have drama. Each tribe has many dramatic storylines unfolding.
Yeah, it's a good one. All right.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Patty. Have a good night, guys. Bye.
Okay, that's that. Back tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk more about cops and the quota thing. So I gotta run. Bye. Let me get the music going, and I'm out of here. All right. Take care, everyone. Good seeing you. And stop by tomorrow. We'll be here.